If you're an analytical guy who struggles with negative thoughts or an active inner critic, and you've tried meditation, affirmations, reframing, journaling to change this, but none of this actually stuck for you the moment it matters, in today's video, I'm going to teach you a process called the 6 R's. Recognize, release, relax, resmile, return, and repeat that you can use in your day-to-day life to reframe negative thoughts and take control back of your state. So let's get into today's presentation. This is how analytical men stop self-critical thoughts within seconds. And what we're going to cover today is the 6-step process that I just described, the reframe that changes everything, that says a thought is actually a notification in your mind, and lastly, a worked example, so this doesn't just stay as something intellectual that you're learning, you know exactly how to apply it in your life. So first, let's start with the reframe. Think of a thought as a notification, right? You can acknowledge, oh, here's a thought that's coming up without actually allowing yourself to get caught up in the thought. And the way I like to think of this is a lot of the time what happens with analytical men is they have a thought and they just feel like they need to respond to it. They need to do something about it. It's almost like your phone buzzes and you forget, oh, I don't have to check my phone or this notification. You feel like you have to read it, right? And when we have that perspective around thoughts, we can create a gap between seeing a thought and becoming one with the thought. And that's exactly where the 6R process lives. So the 6R process comes from the TWIM lineage, which is a meditation practice based on loving kindness combined with Vipassana. It's developed by Bhante Vimalaramsi, and it was passed on to me by one of my teachers, Pierre, who learned this from Sister Kema, one of my other teachers, right? And I've adjusted it slightly for analytical men who still want to live their day-to-day lives without putting on a robe or turning into a monk, so you can fit it into your day-to-day life. And the first step of the 6 R's is actually the most important one because this is where most analytical men go wrong. Step number 1 is recognize. Instead of fighting or building a case against your thoughts, observe the notification firing. What most analytical men do is, let's say you have a thought, oh, I'm so lazy. Then you start arguing with that thought. No, I'm not lazy. Sometimes I'm actually pretty motivated and I can be quite disciplined. And then there's a part of you that says, but what if I am lazy, right? So you get stuck in this point of view, in this energy where there's a fight happening, but you don't actually need to do that. You don't need to build a case against your thoughts. The only thing that you need to do is recognize, oh, here's a notification firing. And because you're able to recognize this, then you can take yourself out of that loop. Now, if this feels a little bit difficult at the start, one tool you can use in your language is, let's say you have a thought that says, I'm messing this up, right? You can say out loud, here's a thought, I am messing this up. And immediately that new language tool allows you to create a distance. Now, over time, the 6 R's become really fast, so you can do them in a few seconds, and you don't have to speak these out. But if you'd like to start slow and build your foundations, I wanted to give you that option because that makes everything very tangible. Now, once you recognize the thought, what do you actually do with it, right? This is where a lot of people go wrong. What we do is, instead of trying to push away the thought, we release it. There is no deleting that's happening here. And you can think of this as, imagine I'm holding a thought in my hand, right? I'm holding it really tightly. And then I just open my hand and allow that thought to go away. The difference in this is mainly in energy. So you don't feel like, oh my God, I don't want this thought, go away, go away. You can just say, okay, I'm going to release this. So you don't create more tension trying to fight against your thoughts. And the difference is actually really big, right? Because when you push, you create more tension, and the pushing keeps the thought alive. You probably heard the saying, whatever you resist persists, right? Releasing allows you to stop investing energy into it. From there, what we do is move on to relaxing. Now, a lot of people, especially if you've done body scan meditations before or you've done a Vipassana retreat, a lot of people confuse this step as a body relaxation or coming back to the breath. But it's not that, it's just a cognitive relaxation. You can think of this as imagining relaxing the inside of your skull. Not your shoulders, not your jaw, not your chest, not your mouth. Just like relaxing your biceps at the gym, you can relax the tension and tightness in the mind. And that may sound a little bit strange at first, but it's one of the most underrated parts of this whole process. And after we relax, the order is very important, we move on to the next step. But before that, if you're enjoying this video, right, and you're thinking, this sounds really cool, can I get a guided protocol to not only regulate my nervous system, but also debug my beliefs and track the change in my life? I highly recommend go to the link in description and download the free 7-day data-driven calm protocol. It's going to help you learn about the RDT loop and implement it in your life so you have a mind that's your biggest asset instead of a greatest critic. Now, step number 4 is re-smile. This is not a performative smile. It's not like you're going to the dentist and you're like, oh, I'm so happy to be here. We're not doing that. It's just a gentle smile in your eyes, on your lips, in your mind, and in your heart. What this allows you to do is, if you've learned about the 3 systems from one of the other videos on the channel, it activates the soothing system, right? The one that regulates the threat response in your body, because the soothing system is activated by warmth and compassion, not by force. So when you smile, it signals, I am safe here, to your nervous system. And this is why it's so important to not skip any steps here or try to innovate. It's recognize, release, relax, then re-smile. And again, you don't have to pretend everything is okay. Just 5% more warmth and smile, right? So now that we've quieted the mind a little bit, what do we do next? The next thing we do is we return. You might be thinking, what do I return to? You return to the present moment, whatever your attention was at before the notification arrived. And this step matters because it stops the rumination, right? If you just go through recognize, release, relax, re-smile, and you sit there, you might get caught up in another thought. So we return to whatever we were doing before, if we were writing a reply on Slack, or if you were texting a friend, or even if you're playing a video game to relax, we just come back to that, right? So returning allows us to continue with our day-to-day life. From there, what happens? Well, what's going to happen at the start a lot of the time is you'll have another thought. So the idea is you repeat the 6 R's as many times as needed with the patience of a child learning something new, right? So the perspective is every negative thought, every time the inner critic fires, it becomes an opportunity for you to build this new mental pattern, to install it into your mind, right? And do this with the curiosity and the patience a child might have learning how to ride a bike, right? They might fall, they get back on, they fall, they get back on. I think a lot of the time as we get experience in life, we lose a little bit of that patience and joy of learning. So I want you to take that and bring it back to this process and not actually expect yourself to master this the first day. Because the thing is, if you haven't trained your mind with this process up until now, at the start, you're going to have the 6R over and over again. And that repetition is what the work is. It's what you're here to do, right? So before we move forward, let me actually show you how this looks like in real life with an example. And we're going to take the thought, I should have responded faster, or I shouldn't have dropped a ball as an example situation. So imagine it's 9 p.m., a few hours after work, you're on the couch, you close the laptop, and you think, oh man, there was a situation at work today, and I should have handled it earlier. Maybe I should have responded to that Slack thread a little bit quicker than I did today, right? So let's start with that thought. What can we do? First, we recognize, oh, here's a thought. I replied slowly on Slack. We don't argue. We don't say, oh no, actually I replied in 2 hours. We don't need to do that, right? Just notice the notification has arrived. Second, we release. I replied too late in Slack. Open the hand, release the thought, stop holding on to it. And what do? We relax. You allow the inside of your skull to just loosen. Then we re-smile, all 4 places at the same time. We smile in the mind, in the heart, on the lips, and on the eyes. And this allows you to, again, slowly activate the soothing system. After that, we return to what was happening before the thought arrived. You were just on the couch, probably chilling. Maybe you were sitting quietly or watching something. We just come back to that moment. And then, maybe a minute later, a few seconds later, the thought comes back and boom, you go through the 6 R's again, right? This is the practice. And at the start, it might take you 30 seconds to run through and remember all the 6 R's. That's okay. But over time, and again, make sure not to change the order, not to skip any steps, but over time, this can take like a few seconds because it becomes an automatic mental pattern that's now installed into how you think. Now, in terms of expectations, just remember when you first practice this same thought might come back 10, 30, 50, 100 times. And this is not the 6 R's failing, right? This is just how an untrained mind behaves. So remember to keep having the patience of a kid just learning something new. So just a quick recap for this video as we're coming to an end. Think of thoughts as notifications. You don't open every notification, so you don't need to engage with every thought. Second, use the 6 R's to deal with negative or critical thoughts. I'm not going to recap them now. Just pause the video and see if you can remember in the right order and just go back to check yourself to make sure you really understand this. And lastly, at the start, expect the 6 R a lot and remember every time you 6 R is an opportunity to install a new mental process. Now, the 6 R process is actually one tool inside a bigger system that I call the RDT loop, right? 6 R's on the regulate side, and on the debug side is where we get to identify where did the inner critic, where do these negative thoughts actually originate from? Because a lot of the time, it was from an experience in the past or a person in your past that you took on these negative beliefs and you need to actually give that back, right? So if you want to learn more about this, go through the RDT loop video. And if you're especially interested in the belief work, go through the trigger mapping video that I released around a couple of weeks ago now. However, the RDT loop is the main process to start with if you care about making this change in your life. And in case you tried the 6 R process while watching the video, if you did that, amazing. If you haven't done that, give it a go now and drop a comment below telling me how it went and maybe which parts you may have had trouble. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.